Hello everyone, welcome back to Mallik Joe 34 channel. This is Malik Arjun. So today we are going to discuss about what are the DBA basic checks and the DBA the moment he starts his particular shift, what are a basic necessary check he has to do it at the database level or at the server level. Everything we are going to check it out, and day-to-day basis daily health check how you can do, what are the different approaches and what are the different tools and what are the different techniques and technology you can use it in order to make sure that your database and server is up and running and it is in healthy condition. So everything we are going to see it here, and at the end we are going to see it about. So rather than doing all this human task manually, is there any way we can make it automation and to make our DBA life easy? So this is going to be one of the interesting topics, the database health checks automation. So just to quick health check report. This is a sample health check report we have prepared. Basically I have prepared for my database. So the moment I log in, I will run a particular shell script which will generate a beautiful HTML file where you can see all your database when it has ran and what is your database size, what is the instances and what is the log sequence mode, table space, data files and disk groups, and what is the usage and what is the concurrent manager status and what is the inactive session, active session, and what is the table space growth, everything, what is the admin backup status, everything you can see it in one particular report. And it will save your entire day, to just to review this report and then start with your day-to-day life, day-to-day DBA activities, right? So rather than running each command and figuring it out, so you just generate one automated report and then review that report and then you can start your DBA other DBA tasks, right? So this is one of the interesting topic for today, so we'll see it all together. So let's start with the today's session. So before I get into the technical discussion, if you are new to my channel, always go back to YouTube and search for Malik 034 and then please do subscribe. If you like my videos, please don't forget to give a thumbs up and share with your friends and colleagues. And if you missed out my previous videos, you can always refer it in my channel Malik 034. Okay, let's get started today's session. So the moment you log in, you have to check about your database instances are up and running. How you can check it out? ps-ef grep smon or pmon, whatever the database process, you can check it out and your database should be the database process or instance should be up and running. That's the first check you have to do. And if it's the ASM, you have to log into the grid user and set the environment. If you're connecting to node 1, plus set it as a plus ASM1, node 2 you can set it as a ASM2, and whatever the node you connect, you set the environment and check for ps-ef grep d.bin. And if it is a cluster where you can do crsctl check crs from all the nodes, so that all your cluster resources or cluster services are up and running. And you can check the cluster resource core services like crsctl stat resource -t -init. And if you want to check it for any one node, you can use crsctl stat resource -t. It will list out all my cluster resource from all the nodes. So you can just verify. In case of ASM, you have to do these checks, and in case of database, you have to do this. And if you once you do DB and ASM checks, so quickly if I show here my particular database ps-ef grep smon, you can see my db12c is up and running. I don't have I don't have cluster where this is standalone, so I will not going to check it out here. So for example, you have to log into grid and you have to set the environment, or if you already by default you have set it out, that will be good using bash profile asm1, like set it out and check for your cluster services. And the third check is you have to check for your listener. ps-ef grep listener, it will give you the listener process up and running. ps-ef grep tns, you can do either of one, you can do it. It will list out whether your listener is up and running or not. If you are using a default listener, you can check the status lsnrctl status, or if you are using multiple listeners and different name, you can use lsnrctl listener underscore name. Whatever the listener name, you can use it here. So quickly I will show it here. ps-ef grep listener listener, or ps-ef grep tns, you can see my tns listener is running here. So if I quickly go to my tns directory, you can see my tns directory and cat listener. So my listener is default listener, so I no need to worry. I have only one listener, that's a default listener. So I can just do lsnrctl status, and I will get the output. If I have multiple listener and different names, I have to use that particular name, like lsnrctl status, listener, whatever the name you have, right? My name is my default listener is listener, so it works here. So that's the listener checks you have to do it. And service name, service name is nothing but you have to again from the TNS directory you have to look for your cat TNS names.ora, and this is my TNS names. You have to do tnsping of that service name. You should get the connection okay. So you have to do the tnsping and try to connect using that particular service name. If you have a username, and check it out, or if you don't have username, you can try to connect using sys. So you have to connect sqlplus mallik or any username slash password at the rate that particular service name. That the two ways you have to check, so that you can there won't be any issue from the application, and application should be able to connect using the service name if it is working. If the two DNS pings and this sqlplus connection via service name works fine, means application should be able to connect to my database, so that you can say that there won't be any issue from the service end. And then mount points, and if you are using a standalone database, you have to make sure that all the mount points should have a appropriate free space, and then enough free space for accommodate all the data change, all the redo logs, all the archeologs. All the mount points should have enough space. And if you are using a asm or rack database, you should connect to asm and connect to this asmcmd, that asm administrative tool, and you have to do lsdg, and data and record diskgroup should have enough space. So if I mine is a standalone database, so I can quickly do the df-h, and everything is running under root file system for me, and I have enough space here, so I no need to worry for that. So how you can verify that? You have to connect to database, and you have to check where is your show parameter, or else you can do select or describe db underscore dba describe db underscore data underscore files. You can do file name, select file name from db underscore data files, and you can see where is your all the data files reside. So all the data files resides under my root file system, so I should have enough space under my root file system. That's the one way. Or in industry standards, ideally what we do, like we will be having a different mount point for oradata, and different mount point for archive, and different mount point for RECO. All the mount points should have enough space, and u01 is for your Oracle home, so u01 should have enough space. So if I do df-h slash u01, so it has enough space. So that those checks you have to do it at the mount point size. Whereas in asm diskgroup, you have to connect to asmcmd, that is a asm command line tool. You have to check for your asm diskgroup, or you can connect to asm instance and do the diskgroup status and size of the diskgroup. Either way you can do it. And db check is nothing but you have to connect to your database, and check whether your database is in open mode or mount mode. All this you can select instance name and status from instance. You should be instance should be open and up and running, and database should be in open read write mode, and what is your log sequence number and everything you have to check it out here. So if I can quickly connect to my database, and I have here my commands. Okay, so I'll check for my instance name and status. My instance is db12c and open, status is open. And similarly, if I check for db open mode, it will be read and write. Your database should be always read and write, production database. And you have to check for your what is the maximum log sequence number, and also you have to check for your db startup time, when this database last time started, so you have to check it out. So these are the checks database level. And also you have to check for invalid object at your database size. So this is a command you have to check. There are no row selected, so there are no invalid object at my database. Like select owner, object name, object type from db underscore object where status equal to invalid, right? Whatever the invalid object, or the view or type or procedure, whatever it is, you have to compile that. And you have to check for DBA registry, so there should not be any invalid object at the DBA registry. You can see all are valid here. All my DB registry components all are valid here. Real application cluster is off because it is standalone database. Right, so all components should be valid. If the anything is invalid, for example, Oracle catalog views are invalid, you have to compile it and make it valid. So that's the other check you have to do. And the indexes, you verify it. There should not be any unusable indexes. If there are any unusable indexes, make it usable, and invalid, you have to make it valid. And DB growth size. So you have to on day-to-day basis, you have to check for your database growth. So this is the command you have to check for your database size. It is just a 2 GB size, so production database, and in industry it will be like 10 terabyte, 20 terabyte, 100 terabyte. So you have to make sure you have to monitor your database growth on day-to-day basis, or on weekly basis, and on monthly basis. So that is the other thing you have to do it. And table space, you have to look for your what are the table spaces, and how it is going. So for that I have one particular shell script here. So I will just quickly run this command here. Finally I'm able to copy it. I will run that SQL. Yeah, you can see, right? So the moment I run that SQL, sysdate when you run, and what are my table space, system, undo, syssocks, what is the byte, what is used, what is the free, and what is the temp table space, all you will get it. So in a systematic format. So this is very good SQL. And then it will help for clear understanding of your table space growth and what is the free space. Okay, so that's the other check you have to do it. And data file size, you have to monitor your data file, how many data files you are adding it, and how many it is going. It is currently 4, like on weekly basis, daily basis, you have to monitor whether anybody has added any data files. And alert log and trace file. So this is very important. You have to always make sure that monitor your alert log, and then is there any vara error like vara 600 or any particular vara error, you have to take appropriate action. So one way is you can get the dump file location and then go to that and then check for your alert log. So and then this is a trace file, right? See dump and log, and this is log location. So you go there and then check for your alert log, and then uh, check for that particular vara message or ADRCI. That is also one of the very brilliant tool. So with the ADRCI, you can directly read your alert log and trace files from the ADRCI tool itself. That's the other way you can monitor it. And the one of the most important thing is you every day you have to make sure that your rman backup should run successfully. And if you are configured on weekend full backup and weekdays incremental backup, whatever level 0 and level 1 backup, you have to make sure that your rman backup should be completed successfully. And in case of it failures, you have to check the rman log and why it failed, and you have to fix that. So because one of the important criteria, your backup plays very important role when it comes to the disaster recovery, or when it comes to the restoring your lower environment like development and prod, or development, or the test, or UAT database. Because if you missed today's backup, if there is an application request, they want to restore until today's date, you will not be able to restore it because you will not be having a today's backup. So backups plays very important role. So each DBA has to make sure that on day-to-day basis backup should be successful. And the dr sync is also one of the critical part. So in order to achieve your disaster recovery, so your dr database is always in sync with your production. Always make sure you can connect to your production database and standby database, and make sure that your maximum sequence number should match in both production and standby. So that indicates my dr is in sync with my production database. If there is any huge gap, you can check it out, select star from view gap. And then if there is a huge gap, you have to take incremental backup, and you have to apply it at the dr site. So these are the basic checks for all DBA has to do it on day-to-day basis. So just imagine to do all this, it will take at least 1 or 2 hours of every shift. If I log into the morning shift, if I do all these checks, it will take at least 2 hours for everyone. To avoid that, you have to write a beautiful shell script. Everything should be ran within a fraction of second. You have to configure all this whatever the commands in a one shell script, and then the moment you log into your any shift like morning shift or afternoon shift or night shift, whatever shift you log in, you just run that particular shell script and you should get a like beautiful this HTML report, and you just read it. Like you can see when this has ran and what is DB size and what are my instances, instance 1 2 3 all are up and running, and what is the archeolog mode, all the instances are in read write mode, and what is my archeolog sequence, and what is the number of table space, number of data files, and what is the disk group, and what is the offline disks, and what is my disk group data size, and what is my all the content of that particular disk group, and what are my jobs, and what are my workflows, and what are my invalid objects. You can see invalid object, I can get the invalid object list here. I can directly go and compile all this, and what are the logged session, what are the active session, and what are the inactive sessions. And these inactive sessions are more than like 4 5 hours. You can directly check with your application team and then kill them, kill all these inactive sessions. And what are the logon records, and then what is the audit record, and what are the count of your logon records, and what are your table space usage, and all this, like this is very very good, right? Like you can, it will be in handy, you can just read it and you can take appropriate action. And what are the temp table space usage, and see, you can see admin backup status for last 90 days. So you can see completed with warnings, completed with warnings are fine. Like these warnings are ignored. If there is any fail, so you have to take why it failed, and and what are the stale status, and if there are any tables are stale, you can run the gather stats, and gather stats completed status, and the threads current thread sequence, and archeolog gap. You can see archeolog gap is 2 2. It means my dr is in sync with production database. And then these are the dr gaps, and these are the last 7 days, how many archives are it is getting generated. You can see by looking at this particular, right, like 573, 357, and 588. Like here it's a huge archeolog generation, and you have to check it out why there is a huge archeolog generation here. And is there any load at my database, or is there any bulk upload is happening at my database? So you have to check it out why there is a huge archeologs by looking at this archive from last 7 days. Similarly, like alert log error, like check your alert log, any var error message. So there no any var error message from all three nodes. Like and then what is the server usage, like top command, and then all the mount point size, all this, you can write a shell script. I have written a shell script for this, and I will go over that shell script in my next videos. So you have to read this particular report. The reading of this report will hardly take 5 10 minutes, and within 5 10 minutes you can finish your database health check, and you can continue with other productive activities, right? So other than spending 2 to 3 hours in running all these commands. So that is what the today's session, how smartly you can utilize your day in order to manage your database, and then in my next session I'm going to go over in deep about my database health check automation, what I written using a shell script, whatever I just showed you. So this entire shell script I'm gonna show you in my next video, and then we'll analyze that entire shell script. Thank you guys.